ones at the ceiling. They're pretty sensitive, and so if you have sidebars, they might be recorded. And so just to let you know that that happens here. The nice thing is people online can hear you from sitting in your spot if that's what you'd like to do. And there will also be taping this and putting it out on YouTube. But they're just a bit of a delay. So with that, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Commissioner Rivera. Here. Commissioner Richardson. Here. Commissioner Gosar is also here. Would you stand and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, item 3, public hearing. The first one listed is the Carbon Power and Light Herrick Lane Conditional Use Application CU-02-22. I entertain a motion to open that public hearing, please.
I move that we open the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, would anybody in person here like to speak on or against the Carbon Power and Light Herrick Lane Conditional Use Application CU-02-22? Okay, how about online? Does anybody like to speak on the Carbon Power and Light Herrick Lane Conditional Use Application? All right, last chance here and online. Commissioners, I entertain a motion to close that public hearing, please.
I move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries. I'd like to open up the Carbon Power and Light State Highway 11 Conditional Use Application CU-03, CU-03-22. I don't know, we need to have a motion for that? I don't think we do. I'm just freestyling today, I guess. So would anybody like to speak in the room on Carbon Power and Light State Highway 11 Conditional Use Application CU-03-22? Okay, how about online? Just raise your hand if you need to, or unmute yourself. And last chance for the Carbon Power and Light State Highway 11 Conditional Use Application CU-03-22. Commissioners, entertain a motion to close that public hearing, please.
I move that we close that public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Next up, the Cottontail Subdivision Preliminary Plat Application SD-11-21. Anybody in the room like to speak on or opposed to the Cottontail Subdivision Preliminary Plat Application? How about online? All right, last chance. Cottontail Subdivision Preliminary Plat Application SD-11-21. I'd entertain a motion to close that public hearing, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries. And the final public hearing this morning, Ladybug Ridge Subdivision, final plat application SD-01-21. Anybody in the room on or against? How about online for the Ladybug Subdivision? Last chance, Ladybug Ridge Subdivision final plat application SD-01-21. I'd entertain a motion to close that public hearing.
I move that we close the Ladybug Ridge Subdivision public hearing.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Yeah, my daughter was sitting next to me on her iPad while I was reviewing this thing, and she's 9, and she thought that we should go move to the Ladybug.
I agree.
So cute.
Susan,
It
I
was-
saw your, go ahead, Susan, go ahead, please.
I was going to say, it was named for a favorite horse.
For a favorite horse, huh?
Big lady.
Yeah, Ladybug.
Yeah. Thank you, Susan. Did we already,
Did you vote?
all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you for that. That goes to the public hearing section. Item 4, comments from the public. Would anybody like to speak on any idea or any topic? The floor is yours. Looks like we had somebody here in the room.
Yes,
Hey,
yes, we have someone here.
could you just give us your name? And,
Janelle Gaddis.
okay, thank you, Janelle. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Doing well.
I did send an early letter. I hope you guys all received it. On September 7th of 2017, I did purchase the 1220 Person Street at the annual Albany County tax lien sale. And this property was listed with the Albany County Assessor's Office as a residential lot. And I attached that showing that. Then on January 3rd of 2022, I applied for and was granted the deed for this property. And Exhibit B shows all the necessary requirements that I had to go through to meet that. And then I did get the tax deed issued this year. And then after acquiring the deed, I pursued with the planning department what I would have to do, or what we would have to do to start building on this empty lot. And then at that time, I was advised by the city planning office that this lot was to be dedicated an open space for the Laramie subdivision, and therefore I couldn't build on it. And so I feel somewhere in the process of this development, somebody had to drop the ball because they didn't follow through with all the necessary designations. And then the county assessor's office kept it on record as a residential lot, and they kept sending taxes out every year. And the taxes were paid by Marino LLC until 2016. At that time, he stopped making payments. And that's when it was put into the tax lien sale. That's when I purchased it. Now, I've been in contact with county treasurer and county attorney, both very cooperative and trying to help, but they cannot seem to get any resolution on this. And what I would really like is for the city to go ahead and honor the zoning, allow us to start our building because it's getting that time of year. And I just feel it would be an advantage to the county because they would be able to collect, of course, property tax once it's built. And of course, we always seem to have housing shortage here in Laramie, and I feel it would also help with that. The lot is not maintained and hasn't been all this time. It's really quite the eyesore over there. And I guess I feel that if for some reason this can't be done, I feel that I should at least receive fair market value for the lot and the time, money, and everything that I put into it. Anyone else have any questions from me?
Thank you, Janelle. Commissioners, any questions?
Super interesting. I mean, it's public comment, right? So
Yeah.
how interactive should this be?
Well, I think Janelle asked for comments, and if you have one, great. If you don't want to have, that's fine.
I think that, it's customary in city planning.
Mhm.
So we don't have any oversight over that, right? I mean, this is just the tax sale part, right? We don't have
Right,
any leverage
sure.
when it comes to dealing with the city. But it's customary in planning for a developer to have to set aside some sort of open space, park space as part of their approval for their subdivision.
Right,
Now, what the terms of that are, I don't know. I've never been a developer in the city, but I'm guessing, this is just a guess, that was Marino's set aside. But what's interesting is that it wasn't deeded to the city. So
exactly.
then why would you keep paying taxes on something that you don't get to keep anyway? It's a weird
Right.
thing, right? And then I know that his health wasn't doing very well, and I think that both he and his wife have since passed. So there could be some explanation as to why the taxes went related to that.
I understand, that his son took over the LLC.
Yeah, but so you see something on the records I guess I don't understand why the city never really took action to make that be the way it was supposed to be, if
I
that's
don't
the way it
understand
was
it
supposed to be.
And
You know, you would hope that there would be some obstacle to you paying the taxes and acquiring the property. But at this point, I mean, like, you're the legal owners of it, to me. So I almost sound like I'm giving legal advice, but I'm just sort of rambling through a stream of consciousness thought process, right? It's interesting that I think that when you get a subdivision approved, these things are all worked out on the front end. I don't understand why that would have remained his, on the tax rolls. I could be missing something, right? That you would have thought, I don't know, maybe that the city would have acquired it by paying the taxes or asked for an exemption from the taxes or, but I don't know how they would restrict you when they didn't exercise that option as part of the subdivision process. The problem is you might have to litigate, right? Which
I was
we all
trying
know.
to avoid that for.
Jennifer, looks like Jennifer, you have a thought.
I'm Jennifer. Nice to meet you in person. We've emailed. So the problem with the lot that Ms. Gaddis bought is it was during a period of time in the city where they didn't require retention ponds, detention ponds, and open space lots to be deeded to them. Prior to this time span in the center, when all that Merino subdivision was built, they did, and now they do. The lot they bought is designated on the plat as open space and non-buildable. But it's still in Merino's name and eventually was, in the grand scheme of the plat, supposed to be transferred. According to Derek Teeney at the city, there's a homeowners association for that development there. So that lot was supposed to be transferred to that homeowners association. That didn't happen. Merino's didn't get that done. So the county still had it as residential because as far as we know, it's either residential, commercial, or industrial.
The way we
Correct.
assess it.
Yeah.
But that's separate from zoning inside the city.
Right.
Gotcha.
So we are working with the city. We reached out because this brought up an issue that we hadn't dealt with before. This lot that Ms. Gaddis purchased and got the tax deed for, we didn't know there were these lots that were not in the city's name, that were not buildable lots. So I worked with Tracy and Chelsea and Derek at the city. We've identified all of the lots on the county side now. Chelsea has flagged them in her system so that they'll be flagged for Tracy.
So this won't happen again, I guess.
It won't happen again. And the city, we asked Derek at the city if the city could come up with a plan if they want to buy these lots for the tax sale prices so we can get them off of our rolls, or what the city wants to do. And they're working through that process. It's slow on their end. And they have said most recently that the open space lots, they're not certain what they're going to do with. They're considering those separately than the detention and retention lots.
Well, my thought on the subject is if you own it, then if somebody wants it, they have to buy it from you and we'll pay you fair market value.
That's, you can make a comment.
Yeah, I need, as a partner on this deal, and I have been in development most of my life in Colorado. Okay, planning dropped the ball. Someone did not do their job on this at all. When they do something like this, the developer would have had to put maybe some kids' play stuff or something in there and maintain it, or turn it over to the
To the HOA, yeah.
Yeah, to the HOA, and then they take it over. But no one ever followed through with this, did it. Well, he saved a lot of money, and he knew it. There's been cases in Colorado where developers, to get their stuff done, I don't care. Like I could tell you.
Right, and you walk off and leave the part,
Yeah, I could tell you
the
about.
public investment.
Right, I can tell you about detention ponds and stuff like that in Colorado, where the developer tried to walk off and wouldn't finish it. Well, and, the homeowners are stuck with it or somebody is. But planning totally dropped the ball on this. And the city selling it as residential. We waited 5 years to pay tax on this. Very seldom do you ever get it, one of them. So
Sure.
we get this as a residential lot. Now, it's simple.
Probably the reason it was never, somebody didn't pay you interest on that and buy you out of the
Well,
tax payments is because they were in health trouble and they had passed away. You just had the fortune or misfortune of being right in that transition period in their lives, and they didn't.
Well, as
And
a
his
developer,
heirs didn't follow
Yeah.
through either with Steve purchasing it.
as
They were
a,
notified for sure.
as a developer, you're supposed to put up that money, to take care of that, what he said. he
Sure,
would.
like a letter of credit or
Yeah,
a
and so planning dropped the ball totally. Somebody didn't do their job, period, and shouldn't be in planning, I guess. And to say what she said, buy it back for what we paid? No, that ain't the deal. They sold us a residential lot.
Oh, I
Why
would
go
sell
to
it fair
court?
market
Fair
value.
market value.
Yeah,
That's
well,
what I'm
no, she
asking.
said, well, she talked about the tax amount.
Yes.
No,
I think but
that is not even close.
the differentiation is that there are other lots like that. And the idea would be that the city could
City.
step in and buy them for taxes so that there's not another situation
yeah.
like
Situation.
that.
Fine if they do that, but we waited the 5 years,
Right.
invested our money.
You can, I don't think you guys belong in the same category as the other properties.
No.
So,
And it's very simple that the city has got it at residential. Nobody's ever done anything. And like she said, to build units in there is what our plans were. It's gonna help the city a lot more than, leaving it as that, park, which is never used by anybody. And I don't think
right.
the homeowners want to buy it. If they do, I mean, we're open to offer.
Well, so this is an interesting forum for you to come to because that's sort of related to the tax sale portion. But the regulatory authority is the city, right? So we're having a fun conversation where we can tell you our opinions. Like if it was me, I'm just telling you,
Your opinion,
Heber
right?
Richardson to the Gaddises.
Yeah.
If you own a piece of property, it has a fair market value. And if somebody wants it, they can. But also on the flip side, maybe they can be really heavily bureaucratic and tie up your capital forever and ever while you haggle with them, right? Which isn't very nice, like as an incentive to,
Yes.
Well,
gun barrel negotiations aren't very nice, right?
no, but if I was to try to sell that, somebody and say, here's a residential lot, and they say, oh, great, I'll give you this amount. They go to build on it,
Right.
even though.
The fair market value is already diminished,
And it says,
right?
our tax deed says residential, so I don't see any, but you just can't change them back and forth. The city has done it, the city needs to.
Well, the difference is that the assessor is assessing it as a residential
Right.
lot. But the assessor doesn't go down into the city's sort of planning and regulatory process.
Yeah.
It's like there are only a few categories of assessment, as far as fee schedules go, like ag, commercial, residential, like that, and for assessment, tax assessment purposes, but that doesn't necessarily, so that's sort of the designation as to the rate that gets paid, the rate that land is taxed at, but that's not the same as the use inside the city. The city might have a different designation for the use. So when you're looking at the county assessment, you're seeing that it's assessed as residential, but that doesn't mean ultimately that it's, that's a question for a different regulatory authority, being the city. Does that make sense?
No, any land I've ever bought or developed has a thing. If it's agricultural, we go into planning, get it changed. They go to residential. By getting it changed.
Right.
Okay, now I can't go and have, like you're having two different things on the same lot. It's not possible. You can't have two different designations of the same property. You can't say the courthouse is commercial and you can't say it's something else.
Well, the reason that it's taxed at residential is because it's in a residential area surrounded by residential. That is not
It is not.
a use designation.
Yeah.
That's just a tax category designation until somebody applies for a use for it. You know, to change the zoning to commercial or to change it to what,
But
whatever.
we don't want to change the.
But the point
We
is
want to
that,
use it as residential,
Right.
what the city said and what they sold it. I can't sell you a piece of property and then tell you that it's residential. Let's say where you're.
well, so I don't know if the city said it's residential. I know that the county assessor taxes it as residential.
Yes, it did.
But
I don't know what
they
the city
gave
says
the
it
deed
is.
As residential, the deed. That's a deed.
Right.
Well, so you have no say over what they do and what you say.
Right. We don't have any authority
Well,
to
then,
tell the city.
we try to talk to the city. I guess our next step, I hate to do it, but attorneys, and this could be a big one against the city, so.
Well, yeah,
A jury's gonna, I don't see how any jury would ever say, that we did something wrong.
Yeah.
And that we should be penalized, or we should be given pennies on a dollar. So
yeah, well,
I was
I,
hoping you could talk to them, or somebody could get this settled. We don't want to do it the hard way, but I guess sometimes you have to.
yeah, well, thank you guys for bringing this to our attention, and I guess thank you for making us aware so that this doesn't happen to somebody else.
So I hope
Yes,
so. I
thank
hope
you.
so.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
And Jennifer, you'll continue to work with them and.
I will.
city try-
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll keep them updated as I hear more from the city.
Thank you.
Anybody else for public comments here in the room? How about online? Do we have any other public comments online? All right. I entertain a motion for the commission to close the public comment.
I so move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, all those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item 5, disclosures, Commissioner Ibarra. Any
I have
disclosures? Commissioner Richardson.
I have none.
I have none either. Item 6, change, considerations of changes on the agenda. Jennifer, please.
Thank you, Chairman Gosar. I'd like to add an executive session for purposes of legal under 16.4.405A2.
You'd think I'd have these memorized by now, but I don't. What is double I? What is 2?
Legal.
Legal. So we'll put
Oh,
that.
gotcha. Not personnel.
Oh, 3 is legal, I think. 2
Yeah.
is personnel, sorry.
Is it personnel? Okay.
3. Okay, and we'll put that after we approve the vouchers, so 27A, I guess.
So did you say A2 or A3?
3, sorry. I did say 2, but I meant.
Proceed.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add to the agenda to have you guys set a work session so that we can discuss budget in regards to salary and some potential benefit changes for the county as a whole as we prepare for budget. And so I apologize, I did not get it on the agenda prior to today, but I'd like to ask for you guys to consider this a work session for that.
So budget work session, we'll put that at 26A. Anybody else changes to the agenda? Okay. Commissioners, I entertain a motion for item 7. With the consent agenda.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item 8, present for approval proclamation proclaiming April 5th, 2022 as National Service Recognition Day. And so I'm really happy to do this. I work in a place that depends on AmeriCorps volunteers. And they're an amazing asset to our organization that allowed us to be proactive, and that is not only in our place, but throughout Albany County. And so I'll read the National Service Recognition Day proclamation. Whereas service to others is a hallmark of the American character and central to how we meet our challenges. And whereas the nation's counties, cities, and tribal governments are increasingly turning to national service and volunteerism as a cost-effective strategy to meet their needs. And whereas AmeriCorps AmeriCorps senior participants address the most pressing challenges facing our communities, from educating students for the jobs of the 21st century to fighting the opioid epidemic, to responding to natural disasters, to supporting veterans and military families. And whereas national service expands economic opportunity by creating more sustainable, resilient communities and providing education, career skills, and leadership abilities for those who serve. And whereas AmeriCorps and AmeriCorps senior participants serve in more than 50,000 locations across the country, bolstering the civic, neighborhood, and faith-based organizations that are so vital to our economic and social well-being. And whereas national service participants increase the impact of the organizations they serve, both through their direct service and by managing millions of additional volunteers. And whereas national service represents a unique public-private partnership that invests in community solutions and leverages non-federal resources to strengthen community impact and increase the return on taxpayer dollars. And whereas national service participants demonstrate commitment, dedication, and patriotism by making an intensive commitment to service, a commitment that remains with them in their future endeavors. And whereas the AmeriCorps shares a priority with local leaders nationwide to engage citizens, improve lives, and strengthen communities, and is joining with the National League of Cities, the National Association of Counties, Cities of Service, and local leaders across the country for National Service Recognition Day on April 5th, 2022. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Pete Gosar, chairperson of the Board of Albany County Commissioners, do hereby proclaim April 5th, 2022 as National Service Recognition Day and encourage residents to recognize the positive impact of national service in our community, to thank those who serve, and to find ways to give back to their communities.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm a volunteer and I love working with other volunteers, and I think we should recognize volunteerism. I move that we approve this proclamation.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, all opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So appreciate people who volunteer for their communities. That is how we build community, in my opinion. So thank you, Sue, and to everybody who does that work. 9, present for approval memorandum of understanding between the City of Laramie, Wyoming, and the Board of Commissioners for the County of Albany, Wyoming, for ambulance services from January 2022 through June 30, 2022, in an amount not to exceed $112,500. Jennifer, thank you.
You're welcome. This is the EMS services in the county. And this is the agreement, as Commissioner Gosar read, from January 1 through June 30th of this year. And it's our repayment portion to the city. And we'll look at entering into an agreement for the next fiscal year after we've had a chance to review potential other funding opportunities with Bailey. And the city has agreed to this shortened time frame for this contract, and they'll be looking at it this year.
Commissioners, any questions? I entertain a motion for item 9 then, please.
I move that we approve item 9 as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Jennifer. 10, present for approval a letter terminating the EMS Systems LLC use agreement for EMS resources and authorize the county attorney's office to sign. Jennifer.
So Steph Baker is on the line also. Steph is the new director of Homeland Security in Albany County EMA. And she had sent me an email, she and Kate, they had this EM Systems program that they use that they're no longer using. And so she asked if we could terminate the contract, and because it extended beyond the original term, we're allowed to terminate it. So this is the letter to terminate it. And if you have any questions about the contract itself, Steph can answer them.
Good morning, Steph. Welcome to the county.
Hi, good morning. Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Awesome. Commissioners, any questions?
I don't think I have.
Steph, I have one question. Do you have something to replace this software, or was it just superfluous?
A little bit of both. So the interface that I saw, I was shown and tried to navigate. It is not user-friendly and rather cumbersome. A lot of our first responder partners, as well as other city agencies as well, it's just not great for what we're looking for. Earlier this week, myself and Kate Allred met with our senior GIS analyst, Karen Bowman. We are looking at the Esri's ARC GIS program that we currently use. It has an emergency management component to it. We already pay for the software, so it seems like we can piggyback off of this. I'm excited to see what it can do for us. It seems to fit all of our needs. The biggest thing to it is that the two-way communication, the public is able to upload documents and photos showing property damage. There's interactive maps, which can depict disaster areas as well as evacuation zones. We have another program we're looking at as well. It is Orion. We're cutting the $10,000 program. If we can go with ArcGIS, that I'm not sure the county already pays for it. I don't know if there'd be an additional cost for the emergency management component, but Orion, the first year is $3,500. From there on out, it would drop down to $2,500. So we do have some options.
Thank you, Steph. I appreciate that. Thanks for that explanation. Anybody else does that? Bring anything?
Well, Esri is an amazing tool. The GIS tool is amazing. The way you can build layers, add and remove. I mean, it's amazing. So, you know, to me, what I'm hearing is that we're paying for something that doesn't deliver value. You know,
yeah.
Is that pretty accurate, Steph?
Yes, yeah, and I'm excited. The Esri program, it seems to have everything that we're looking for. Most importantly, getting that information out real time to the public, because that's why we're here, as well as keeping our responders safe and working together, establishing better communication. So I would like to already use this program. We have an in-house specialist with Ms. Bowman, so I'm excited to see how we can develop and fine tune the needs to what exactly we need.
Thank you, Steph. Commissioners, I entertain a motion for item 10, please.
That we approve item 10 as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thanks, Steph. Welcome
Thank
aboard.
you. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah. 11, present for consideration the Carbon Power Light Herrick Lane Substation Conditional Use Application CU-02-22. David, good morning.
Morning, Commissioners, Mr. Chairman. Carbon Power and Light have applied for a conditional use to construct an electrical substation on property that they just acquired that is next to property they already own that has some substations on it. They're taking one of them out and replacing it with this one. The property that they will be putting this on is currently zoned agricultural, which requires the conditional use permit application and approval. This application was submitted to a number of county agencies and state agencies to review. We only received comments from the Wyoming Department of Transportation. They just, mention that any development within the right of way, they need to check with them. They also need to make sure the drainage isn't increased by this project that goes into their right of ways. If there's any additional any additional work they need to do, they'll need to contact YDOT and work with them on that. But I think that they're pretty much set up for what they're doing right now. They're not changing the access on this one.
So they'll use the approach from the other substation that's right next door.
Yeah. Yep. And so findings necessary for approval. They provided notice as required. They have to make, or the board has to make the following findings: that the applicant has provided the site plan and survey maps as required, that the proposed conditional use shall not harm the public health, safety, and welfare of the community, and adequate public services are available for the proposed conditional use without creating an financial burden on the county. And then that the applicant has adequately addressed the impacts of the project, which are listed in here. The applicant did make responses to all of those different impacts. So let's see, just brief analysis. The notice was provided as required. We did receive all the information that they're required to submit. The original property owned by Carbon Power and Light is currently used for an electrical substation, and the rebuilding of the substation on the property recently acquired by Carbon Power Light should have minimal negative impacts on the surrounding area. Reconstruction of this substation will provide additional electrical capacity in the area for support of current and future uses. Findings of fact, the findings necessary for approval, applicant responses and staff analysis referenced in this report are adopted as findings reflecting that the applicant has adequately addressed the specific impacts and that are in the same are incorporated here. Conclusions of law, the applicant is proceeding in accordance with and in compliance with the requirements of the Albany County zoning resolution. Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed this application and recommended approval of this application. If you have any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer those. If you have questions for the applicant, Jim Beckman's in the room from Carbon Power and Light. He'd be happy to answer any questions that he has.
Okay, commissioners for David, and then we'll go with Jim.
Yeah, I just have one question. David, what is the time for the reconstruction? When is this intended to take place?
The applicant probably can answer it better, but I believe it's this next month, right? Or
Yes, ma'am. We would begin dirt work on the new pad at the new yard for the substation next week.
Okay, and how long will it take to complete?
You know, a lot of that's going to be weather dependent, especially starting this early in the year. It should be through in July. And then once final testing and checkout has been completed, then we'll begin the wreck out and reclamation of the old substation site. So
I asked just because I'm one, and I know there are several cyclists who use Herrick Lane, and
okay.
you know, are antsy to get out there. It's weather determined as well, but just wanted to make sure that you are aware, I'm sure you are, that there are cyclists who use that lane quite a bit.
Yes. And as far as truck traffic goes, there really will have two large trucks that need to access the site. Other than that, it'll be the smaller vehicles. I mean, and a lot of it will be pickup. Obviously, there will be some equipment hauled in and out, but
And will there be a lot of traffic coming and going then during the day, or?
But you know, there'll probably be maybe 4 trucks in and out of there every day, just with crews and everything. So it shouldn't be a huge influx of traffic out there.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Commissioners, any other questions? All right, start entertain a motion for item 11, please.
I move that we approve item 11 as presented.
Second.
I think we might have to put including the findings of fact.
Oh, yeah, I move that we approve item 11 as presented, incorporating the findings of the staff report and the findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Second, please.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, all those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Today, we're going to be talking to you again, looks like. Present for consideration, item 12, the Carbon Power and Light State Highway 11 Centennial Substation Conditional Use Application CU-03-22. David, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, this is a similar ask from Carbon Power and Light. The property is 296 State Highway, well, it's adjacent to 296 State Highway 11, so this is in between Albany and the Highway 130. And so this is also on a property that has an electrical substation that they're doing. They're moving this, they'll take this one out and they're moving it to another part of the property. This one does require a new access to be built from Highway 11, from the Highway 11 right away. And they did contact WIDOT, do have proper permitting from them to do that. WIDOT did respond to the request to review, and they provided pretty much the exact same comments on this one. Just if there's anything that's going on in the right of way, they need to be notified. If the drainage is going to affect the right of way, they need to be notified. Work with them. Conservation District looked at it but didn't have any objections. Game and Fish did have a number of comments on this property. The location is within crucial winter range, and so they're recommending no ground disturbance activity associated with this project between November 15th and April 30th. And then they also made some comments about noxious weeds just to make sure that they're taking precautions there. They also noted that this is shown, a part of this property may be within the wetlands that they, wetlands in the area as delineated by the Army Corps of Engineer. And then they also just provide recommendations based on best management practices for control of erosion to prevent sediment getting into the waters there. And then also they recommend prevention of spread of those species that we don't want, that are not supposed to be here. What are those called?
Invasive, noxious.
Well, they have AES, AIS, and I'm like, what does that stand for? It's like, I know, I can't remember. Anyways, yeah, so they don't want to do that. So they provided some recommendations there. So the findings, same findings. So the one, I guess the area that we discussed quite extensively during the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for the impacts to obviously the mule deer and elk and pronghorn in the area, as well as just making sure that they're taking care of all those other recommendations of Game and Fish. So they did provide a complete application and address the potential impacts. The rebuilding the substation should have minimal impacts. Again, this will increase electrical capacity in the area. The applicant has received their permit to access the site from State Highway 11 from Wyoming Department of Transportation. They provided their additional concerns, and the applicant is working with White on those. Game and Fish provided a number of comments, which I summarized. A particular concern was the mitigation of impacts to crucial winter range for elk, deer, and pronghorn in the area, mitigation of impacts to mapped wetlands and waterways, and mitigation of potential introduction of invasive species and noxious weed species in the area. The applicant should follow these recommendations of the Game and Fish during construction of the facility and during subsequent maintenance. Findings of fact, findings necessary for approval, applicant responses and staff analysis referenced in this report are adopted as findings, reflecting that the applicant has adequately addressed the specific impacts and the same that are incorporated here in conclusions of law. The applicant is proceeding in accordance with and in compliance with the requirements of the Albany County zoning resolution. The discussion, as I kind of mentioned, the Planning and Zoning Commission discussed whether to incorporate conditions that they follow the recommendations of the Wyoming Game and Fish Department. Mr. Kennedy expressed his concerns with the Game and Fish recommendation because he believed they should not make the recommendation to contact U.S. Army Corps of Engineers because that's outside of their authority. Ms. Hanning supported the conditions, having no issues with Game and Fish recommendations. Mr. Plat suggested an alternative condition that would include an investigation by a qualified professional of whether the site included any wetlands and that the land disturbance be at least 10 feet from wetlands. Chairman Hinckley supported the Game and Fish recommendations. And then a motion was made by Mr. Kennedy to approve the application with the conditions that Wyoming Game and Fish recommended. And Ms. Hannon seconded the motion, and then roll call was taken. The motion was unanimously approved. And so the actual motion included basically approval of the application with findings, fact, conclusions of law, with the additional condition that adherence to the recommendations of the Wyoming Game and Fish Department as referenced in the staff report is numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 under the review section on that. So with all that, I will note that the applicant did reach out to Army Corps of Engineer. They did a review of the site plan and the site, and they found that there's no wetlands that will be impacted. So the wetlands issue has been taken care of. And the applicant is working on the rest of those things to make sure that they're following game and fish. So they won't build within that time period that they don't want them to. Those other things. So
Who would want to? I would not want to build a substation between November and April 15th. I just wouldn't in the Centennial Valley. It would double the cost. It'd be insane.
Commissioners, any questions for David? Thank you, David.
I don't think so.
I find it curious that the habit of sort of attaching conditions that are outside of zoning regulations. The Game and Fish makes recommendations, but they're not binding by law. That is a separate negotiation that Carbon Power would have. And probably it would happen in good faith. And requiring somebody to comply with what's federally accomplished through the Army Corps of Engineers floodplain. I don't like it when we sort of don't stay in our lane. It doesn't. We have a certain place in the application process, and that has to do with the conditional use and the permitting of the substation. But that doesn't mean that we have to guard all of the other agencies that have, comment or influence in the process. And it could lead to litigation. Also, it sort of treats the applicant like there's an expectation that they wouldn't follow the Game and Fish's recommendations, like that we have to make them do it or they won't. When for years and years as these things go, all of that stuff goes into the mix and it always comes out the back end just fine. So I'm going to make a motion. I move that we approve the conditional use application in item number 12 as presented in the staff report, incorporating the findings of fact and conclusions of law, excluding the additional conditions, that planning recommends as they relate to the game, the requirement that they satisfy the Game and Fish's recommendations.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Well, I'll second the second discussion.
Okay.
But I think most of those issues were taken care of by the fact that Cottontail and I did reach out to the Corps of Engineers and got an answer as far as the wetlands.
Well, right. So there would be no reason for us to include them if they've already been dealt with.
Mr. Beckman, do you have anything to say? Would you?
I would just like to add to that, and I appreciate Commissioner Richardson realizing that those are the steps that we take. As an RUS borrower, we have to draft a 4-year construction work plan. And as part of that work plan, there is a comment period for all state and federal agencies where we submit the work plan to them. So we've already gone through this this comment period once where they can submit conditions then. So, and we do take those steps to meet those conditions because that's part of our requirements to obtain federal funds to operate. So, and we do take every step necessary to meet those conditions.
So would you have already met these conditions without them being in?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and is that something you have to state on a binding agreement as a federal borrower? Just
Yes.
for my own identification.
Yeah, it's pretty open-ended. Honestly, we get those comments from the agencies and we act upon those comments and make sure those guidelines are met. They really don't follow up with us, hey, you built that substation, did you do all of this? But we have the documentation to support that, yes, we did do everything, should someone ever say, or ask the question, did you meet all these conditions before you proceeded with the project? And that's our responsibility as an RUS borrower to be able to obtain the funds to maintain our infrastructure.
Okay, but if you weren't an RUS borrower, you wouldn't have that obligation. Is that correct?
You know, I am really not sure how it works outside of that because every cooperative I've worked for has been an RUS borrower. But speaking for Carbon Power as good stewards of the land and as members of the community, we would take those steps.
Does it hurt to highlight those in a report just to remind? I mean, like, we do ask Game and Fish for their input.
Right. I don't think it hurts. I don't think it hurts to have those conditions brought up just so everyone's aware of what's out there.
Yeah, David, you had your hand raised, please.
Just to add a little bit to the discussion, you know, some of the recommendations fit right into what we're asking, like the water quality section. One of the reasons we ask for these folks to you know, provide comments is because we don't have the expertise in a lot of these areas. And so in that area, I think that we probably have a little leverage to put that in there because it's part of the water quality section that the impact that they have to address. Now, there may be other areas that they're a little bit farther out that we don't really address in here, that maybe shouldn't be in here. It is a conditional use, so I mean, that implies that we can do conditions as well. But for sure, I would say the things that we're asking them to address, impact-wise, if we get comments on that, that can be included.
So my point is that the habit of sort of attaching conditions that are already part of the process, in other words, we restate them, it mucks it up and muddies it up because they already exist. Also, the comment about the Army Corps of Engineers and floodplain, that means that had to have been looked at from a satellite map or an aerial view, because that land has a lot of grade to it. And I'm gonna guess that the substation isn't gonna be built in the bottom. So whoever looked at it didn't go out there and look at it. So then, you know, we wind up having a discussion that's somewhat irrelevant, as though we need to babysit the applicant's ability to deal with the Army Corps of Engineers. In other words, when we stay in our lane, we do our best work. And when we somehow imagine that we have to manage all of those things, we muck it up. And so that's why, and considering the fact that it's built into the process and the issues have already been dealt with, that's why I made the motion to approve it without the conditions that were recommended, because they're superfluous. And
Yeah, I think when you ask somebody's opinion, if they bring up valid points, you should address those points, especially if we have water quality as part of our regulation and they are our water quality specialists. And in this case, you might be incredibly right. I think some of the things that were asked here are though just best practices, right? Clean machines, no noxious weeds, nobody wants that. You know, not operating between November and April 30th, typical winter habitat range. I mean, I'm sure you guys do that all the time, but it's not it's an opportunity to just say that out loud. Now, whether we stick it on there or not, I think that's to your point.
yes, as a legal condition for approval, because then what we're doing is we're sort of backhand codifying what is just an ask, a request. See, the Game and Fish doesn't have any they don't have regulatory authority per se, like we're going to make you do this. It's just a conversation, a very good natured one. And there's no reason for the applicant to say, we want to build this on January 1. So pound sand, guys, right? So the point is that there is some risk when we sort of redefine the relationships and we say, because the Game and Fish asked you to do this, we are going to make it a condition of, maybe if we wanted to be able to put those kind of conditions on conditional uses or make that part of the process, we would need to go back through our zoning resolution and include a section on that where we specifically say in our rules that this is something that we may do based on the recommendations of YDOT or whoever. But right now, if I'm an applicant and I look at what's in front of me in terms of regulation, that doesn't exist until I get here, and then somebody says, well, we just think it's a good idea that we attach these conditions. So for me, it's about legality and process. I don't know why we would sort of make a condition of approval when we don't say that we would do that or that we could do that in our zoning resolution, why we would do that and sort of restate or reaffirm what's already in our zoning regulations. It either is strong enough by itself so we don't have to restate it, or we're going and trying to do something else that maybe we ought to go back and amend our zoning resolution if we want to make a habit of that, rather than just sort of saying, well, we think this is fun and we like this idea, so you got to do that, right? You know what I'm saying? We're taking upon ourselves to give sort of regulatory authority to a state agency's comments, which is not how the system is structured. And we're the ones who make our zoning resolution and change it and modify it. So we could, if we think it's that important, we should make it part of the zoning resolution, not just sort of from the hip do this, on a regular basis. As a commissioner for 7 years and a half, 7.5 years, it introduces a process problem that shouldn't be there.
So just
that we need to deal with a different way if we really think it's important to deal with.
Okay, so just to try to give staff and myself a little understanding, if we are regulating water quality in our regulations and the Game and Fish says recommendations about water quality, the only problem you would have is, or you would like us to remove the Game and Fish and say adherence to our water quality standards and then just adopt their water quality recommendations.
Well,
our guys, not the Wyoming.
Our water quality is enough that the Game and Fish is basically echoing what our water quality standard says. Their comments are so in regulation, our water quality, like erosion mitigation and putting those little straw booms that catch runoff and stuff so you aren't running red silt down into the creek or whatever. That already exists. So the fact that the Game and Fish says, hey, we want you to watch out for water quality, doesn't mean that we have to say, do what we're going to make that part of our conditions because it's already built in. We already have dealt with the water quality issue on our own regulatory side. So to say, like as a nod of politeness or something to the Game and Fish, the Game and Fish is smart. They know what our regulations say. They know we've already dealt with it. So we're misunderstanding the comments that we get from state agencies, right? We think that they're asking us to do something, but they're not. They're asking for mutual understanding between them and the applicant based on their expertise. But the regulatory component of water quality already exists on the federal side with the Army Corps of Engineers. I mean, they would get in massive trouble if they broke ground in a floodplain without consulting the Army Corps of Engineers. Way more trouble than we could ever throw at them. I mean, it just wouldn't even, it would be ugly, right? So they just don't do that. It's not something we have to babysit. And when it comes to what the water quality comments or that kind of stuff from Game and Fish, because we already have it in our regulations, that's just a conversation. They're not asking us to do anything that we haven't already done. So why the planning commission doesn't understand that, and why we get plats or subdivision applications or zoning things or conditional uses coming at us with conditions attached that are already established in our zoning resolution, means that we fundamentally don't understand what our zoning resolution says and what the purpose is of the comments from the state agencies.
So Heber, should planning department not be sending out those letters asking for their expertise to these various agencies?
We have to. It's
Okay, so
in law, but it doesn't mean that their comments are regulatory. Their comments are just comments. What's regulatory is what's in the zoning resolution. So we shouldn't elevate their comments to a condition for approval, because that's not what they're for.
So David, just one quick question, just looking through these Game and Fish, and you probably know the regulations much better than I do for sure. Does our regulations state cleaning and fueling and maintaining vehicles and equipment at designated offsite areas located at least 500 feet from aquatic or wetland habitat?
No, I mean, they're very vague. All it says is mitigate any adverse water quality impacts.
Right, and so then they wouldn't probably have preserving existing vegetation where possible, properly containing stockpiles of materials and locating them away from aquatic or wetland habitat or areas of potential stormwater concentrated flow, stabilizing all exposed surfaces, vegetation, molds, and or soil binders. So these are not included in our regulations, is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
And that's why the Game and Fish comments for us. So here I might have to push back on you. I understand your point, and I do agree that we ask them for their comments. But when they give us their comments, we can make them regulatory to say that water quality, at least with regard to this, means cleaning, fueling, and maintaining vehicles and equipment at designated offsite areas located at least 500 feet from aquatic and wetland habitat, because our comments are silent and not specific when it says that. It says we have water quality regulation, but it does not go and say we have cleaning, fueling, and maintaining vehicles. And so that is where I feel the role of these outside agencies is to help us clarify our regulations so that Mr. Beckman's crew can understand what we would like them to do.
But that is an ask. It's a preferential ask. If we as commissioners want our water quality regulations to be that specific, we need to amend our zoning resolution and inject that kind of language in it. Because that language is not regulatory in the sense that we can attach it as a condition to. If we want to have that as a condition, we need to put it in our zoning resolution so that any applicant deals with it that way, that they can see what they're going to be asked to do. You know, what the Game and Fish is saying is, will you guys please do this? And they're going to say, yeah, that's what we always do, right? Because that is what they always do. They already do that. They have it in their standard operating procedures as a utility. It's just what they do, right? Now, we don't know that, but does that mean we have to inject ourselves into that? It means we can, but we have to do it by amending our zoning resolution, not just saying, yeah, do what the Game and Fish said.
Yeah. Well, I might have a different take on that, but that's all right.
I just operate with more restraint, you know, fundamentally as an elected official, I just operate with more restraint than you do.
Well, or that your zoning regs would be 753,000 pages long, because then you'd have to entertain every possible notion and put it in your zoning regs so that you had something to fall back on. And so I guess I'm a minimalist compared to you. And so we've got a motion on the floor. I think Mr. Beckman did those things.
I am both a minimalist and I operate with restraint.
Okay, well, we can all call it ourselves, however we would like to. Mr. Beckman, are those arrangements that you've seen in this from the Game and Fish, are those some things that are going to cause you guys heartburn to comply with?
No, we're already in compliance. I've got no site work will begin until May 2nd. May 1st is a Sunday, so Monday, May 2nd is when we're looking at kicking things off.
Super.
So,
Thank
and then weed mitigation is something that we do. And same with controlling any runoff from the site or anything that's fences and walls or whatever else we may need. So that's not just standard operating procedure, really.
Super. Thank you so much. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
Yes, as a minimalist, that is why I made the motion that I did.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign?
Aye.
Okay. This is, motion carries. Thank you so much for the spirited discussion. And I think this is something we'll have to address at a later date. Thank you, Mr. Beckman, for your input.
Thank you for your time.
Item looks like 13, present for consideration the Cottontail Subdivision preliminary plat application SD 11-21. Joe, you're up.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I have some letters for you.
Perfect.
Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
All right. So those letters, I guess we can talk about now or talk about later. Whichever you would like.
How about let's talk about them now and then you.
Okay, so at the planning and zoning meeting, it was brought up that a possible wrong calculation was made by DEQ. And they wanted to send back a letter to DEQ to just to make sure that it would still be a non-adverse recommendation. And so that's the first letter. And then the second letter is the response from DEQ. And from how I read it, they stick with the non-adverse recommendation.
Where do you see that language, Joe, so you can help us orient the document?
About halfway through, it says, based on the above information, the determination was made that a non-adverse recommendation could be made for this subdivision. And then they go into septic systems need to have their own test pits and whatnot. So yeah.
So I don't have a letter from.
Did I not pass you the DEQ one?
Oh, there it is. Sorry.
It's hiding.
Thank you.
Sorry, they were separate.
Okay, thank you so much. Sorry about that.
So the
Commissioner,
point
any
is that
questions?
there was a miscalculation,
Yeah,
but it's immaterial to the conclusion.
correct.
Okay.
That's how I.
Commissioner Barry, anything?
No.
Okay, go ahead, Joe, please.
All right, so this applicant and owner is James Osborne, located at 1 Cottontail Drive. The request is for the approval of preliminary plat. Current zoning is urban residential. Lots will be accessed from Cottontail Drive and existing private road. There were a couple of reviews. Karen Bowman, senior GIS analyst, had no concerns. And Bill Gorman, county engineer, had some concerns about the preliminary plat that they were taking care of. Water, 7 Mile Water District will provide the water. Sewage will be served by individual systems. Those systems will need to be applied through the county planning department. A storm drainage report was complete for this proposal, reviewed by Bill Gorman, county engineer. Carbon Power and Light provides service to the area. Postal service is existing. Road improvements to Cottontail Drive are proposed. Covenants with the road maintenance plan will need to be filed with the final plat. Financial assurance will also need to be provided with the final plat. Fire protection will be provided by Albany County. Findings of fact, the information provided in the staff report shall be incorporated as findings of fact. The applicant is proceeding in accordance with the requirements of the Albany County Planning and Subdivision regulations. And this subdivision is being proposed in an already developed area. The preliminary plat complies with the standards of the Albany County Planning and Subdivision regulations. At the February 1st, 2022 meeting with the with you guys, the Board of County Commissioners, you approved a variance request from road standards to be able to have a 58-foot right of way. And at the March 9th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting, it was brought up that a wrong number was used when calculating nitrate concentration. Letter was sent to WDEQ to see if a non-adverse recommendation would still have been given to this project. And the calculation was calculated with the correct number. And that's the letter we received back. Staff recommends approval of the preliminary plat for Cottontail Subdivision, preliminary plat application SD 1121, based finding incorporating the findings of fact and conclusions of the law as stated in the staff report. The planning and zoning recommendation voted 3-1 to recommend approval of the Cottontail Subdivision preliminary plat SD 1121, incorporating the findings of fact and conclusions of law as written in the staff report, with the condition that planning and zoning Commission Chair will contact WDEQ regarding the calculation of nitrate concentrations and make the final decision on septic system design when the final plat is reviewed. Commissioner Kennedy is the one that voted against the motion, but did not give a reason.
All right. Thank you, Joe.
Yes.
Commissioners, any questions? No. You'll have one question here on the DEQ's letter.
Okay.
It says it needs to be noted that any septic system installed in the subdivision will need to have their own test pit and percolation tests conducted in order to design the system. Should shallow groundwater be found in future pits, then mounted septic systems may be required. Will that appear somewhere on the plat or somewhere so that people can see that?
You can make it a condition, I believe.
Mr. Chairman,
Isn't,
what I would say is that this is one of these, this is exactly the situation from last. If you were to look at the county wastewater regulations, there is, all of that is in there.
Yeah.
Like you can't get you have to apply for a permit, you have to do a percolation test, you have to do a test pit, you have to examine soil characteristics. And if any of the limitations are met, then you have to look for an alternative, and it's all laid out in there. I mean, the process for obtaining, a septic permit, that's what that letter says is the standard language that is already dealt with in this septic permitting process, right? It's not, there's nothing extra or different or anything. If somebody wants to install a septic system, they have to go through everything with the county wastewater engineer and in our regulations that is stated in that letter. Like there's nothing extra or special in there. It's already there.
Yeah, David, go ahead.
I mean, I'd agree that that's true. That's our wastewater regulations require the deep pit and the percolation test. And so we will be able to see if there's groundwater in there. And if there is, then there's a mounted system requirement. And I did look at their recommendation and they didn't require any notes to be added to the plat.
Okay.
So
I just had we just had something dealt with public comment today where somebody didn't cross the I's or cross the T's and dot the I's. And I just want to be disclosing to people, if we don't already disclose it, but you've satisfied that we've disclosed it. And so that people who don't get oh, by the way, and then come talk to us about why we didn't know about the shallow water. So.
Yeah, so because I live in that world and do that, there really aren't any deficiencies in the. It's interesting that the DEQ's letter sort of is, they're sort of predicting what might happen if you discover shallow groundwater. And part of the reason that they write letters like that is that not all counties do their own wastewater rules. Like in Carbon County, if you put a septic system in, Carbon County doesn't have a wastewater engineer and wastewater regulations. And in their absence, you make the application to the DEQ. So the DEQ is in the habit of sort of acting like the regulatory agency and saying, if you find this, you might have to do this. But all of that stuff is already in our regulations because we have a county wastewater engineer and we have our own regulations that meet the minimum standards for DEQ. And then there's been some things added to ours, rightfully so, that are just, so ours are more stringent. But the point is that's why we get that letter like that, because DEQ sort of thinks like our wastewater engineer does. But when you go make application, all of those things get dealt with. And the choose your own adventure book that is the ifs and thens, you know, is mapped out in a regulatory way that there's no way around what they're saying. It just is.
I'm not laughing at the comment. I just think that
That's
choose your own
funny.
adventure was kind of funny to me. But yeah.
Choose your own poison, you know, like,
Yeah.
oh, great, now we found shallow groundwater. Well, if this, then this, you know, yeah.
Commissioner Barrett, anything?
No.
Yep. All right, I'd entertain a motion for item 13, please.
I move that we approve the Cottontail Subdivision preliminary plat application incorporating the findings of fact and conclusion of law.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. And Joe, looks like we have you one more time here. Yep. Item 14, present for consideration the Ladybug Bridge Subdivision Final Plat Application SD-01-21 and a subdivision permit. Joe.
All right, the applicant is and owner is Susan Faraday, located about 5.5 miles north of Laramie. Request is to approve a final plat application and a subdivision permit. Current zoning is rural residential, current use is vacant, and access is from US Highway 30. There were some reviews. Jake Schneider, acting county engineer, had comments regarding the engineering for final plat, but everything has been taken care of. Jory Unverzat, the addressing coordinator, approved the road name. Laramie Rivers Conservation District, Martin Curry, interim district manager, believes that this is a suitable use for this parcel. He noted that erosion should not be an issue, but care should be taken to minimize land disturbance. He recommends reclaiming disturbed areas and encourages rural small acre landowners to test their well water every 3 to 5 years. And all the full comments can be seen in the review section. Water lots will be provided domestic water from individual wells. Lots will be provided sewage systems by individual systems that will need to be applied through the Albany County Planning Office. Storm drainage report was complete for this proposal and reviewed by Jake Schneider, county engineer. Current power and light provides power to the area. Postal service is existing. There is one new road. The required turnaround. Its name is Sunflower Court and has been approved. A draft covenants with a road maintenance plan has been submitted, and it will need to be filed with the final plat. No financial assurance is required as the turnaround has already been built. Fire protection will be provided by Albany County. Notice has been provided in accordance with the Albany County Planning and Subdivision Regulations, Chapter 4, Section 9. The information provided in the staff report shall be incorporated as findings of fact. The applicant is proceeding in accordance with the requirements of the Albany County Planning and Subdivision Regulations. Staff analysis, this application qualifies to be reviewed as a small subdivision in accordance with the Albany County Planning and Subdivision Regulations, Chapter 4, Section 6, and has met the standards of the process. The final plat complies with the Albany County Planning and Subdivision Regulations. This subdivision is being proposed in an area that has been previously developed into a residential community. The lots will be accessed from US Highway 30. The addition of 2 lots should not create any substantial impacts to the area, and fire safety requirements have been waived by the fire board. Staff recommends approval of the final plat application and a subdivision permit for the Ladybug Bridge subdivision final plat application SD-0122, based upon and incorporating the findings of fact and conclusions of law as stated in the staff report. And the Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation was unanimously recommends to approve the final plat application and subdivision permit for the Ladybug Bridge subdivision final plat application SD-0122, based upon and incorporating the findings of fact and conclusions of law as stated in staff report.
Thank you, Joe. Commissioners, any questions?
Just a comment to Commissioner Richardson that you have to move with the name of like Ladybug Ridge and Sunflower Court Road. Your daughter definitely
I
wants to
know.
live out there.
Sadly, I don't.
You know, the problem is, it's so windy right there that we probably couldn't get a ladybug to live there or a sunflower to grow.
It's so windy.
It's aspirational.
I'm glad it's Miss Faraday's dog.
Hey, man, we all live here. We know what it is.
I'd entertain a motion for item 14 then.
I move that we approve item 14 as presented, incorporating the findings of fact and conclusions of law as outlined in the staff report.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. Item 15, present for approval, directive to publish an amended fee schedule that will include a late fee for a mobile home park license application. David, good morning. Thank you again.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, we are proposing to change our fee schedule to include a $100 late fee for license applications that are late for mobile home park annual licensing. We've had a problem over the last decade getting these applications in on time. And so this is one way we can try to encourage those that are turning these applications to get them into us on time. So right now, we're just asking for your directive to publish. We'll get it posted in the paper and then schedule a public hearing to review that, which I think would be, have it in here. I think it's in June, like the first meeting in June. So
Yeah, June 7th.
okay, yeah, I was looking at my next staff report, so that's probably June 7th. So if you would be willing to do that, we'll move forward with that process.
Thank you, David. Commissioners, any questions for David?
Aside from publishing in the paper, David, will these, each of these trailer parks be receiving something personally, a letter saying that these will take place?
We did send some letters to that. I don't know if we mentioned that, but they will now because you mentioned that. So.
Well, I don't want them to come back and say, I didn't see the paper. I don't get the paper.
Yep. No, we will notify all of our mobile parks.
I think they're going to play their violin about the penalty they didn't know about when they didn't make their licensing deadline, right?
Yeah.
Well, and I think quite honestly, if the computer asked you about this, I'd say the additional staff time it takes to do one seas in December, this more than is reasonable. To us, and don't worry about writing a $100 check. So,
Well, it could be double. I mean, the
Yeah.
truth of it is,
Yeah.
it's a very modest penalty considering what the planning staff has to go through.
Agreed.
Maybe there's, $100 isn't that much incentive to get it done on time.
Well, maybe we'll revisit this if that doesn't work, right? So, yeah. Commissioners, I'd entertain a motion for 15 then.
I move that we approve the directive to publish an amendment fee schedule that will include a late fee of $100 for mobile park license application.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
Should I have said $200?
All right. Present to item 16, present for consideration the City of Laramie rezoning application being submitted by Laramie Land LLC that will include a portion of the Bill Nye Avenue right-of-way between Grand Avenue and Sherman Hill Road. David.
And Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, as you may recall, this is a property that we've discussed before, this portion of Bill Nye. The City of Laramie will be considering an annexation here in the near future. But because it has not been annexed into the city at this time, they are requiring that the applicant get our signature, basically the county signature, saying that we would be okay with rezoning that piece of road. So that's what's being considered here. They just want, if you're okay with it and approve this, then you can go ahead and sign it and we'll get it over to the city. So.
Commissioners, any questions? Yeah. Sherman Hill Road District on board. They're behind this. They understand what we're doing and just want to make sure that that has been taken care of, I think.
Yeah, so the agreement that we had, because like a choose your own adventure, right? That's all. There's some ifs and thens, right?
Yeah.
Like they're not going to annex it. If something falls through on the subdivision, right? it's like lined up the way the dominoes fall. So ultimately, this domino wouldn't fall unless all the other ones did. Right.
It's my understanding it was the annexation that they were concerned about. This won't change anything when it comes to, the annexation will have an impact on them, this will not.
Right. It doesn't really matter
It's
what,
just changing the zones from some residential zone that.
it doesn't matter what the road is zoned, people are still gonna drive on it, no matter what it's zoned.
All right, but just want to make sure. Item 16, entertain a motion, please.
I move that we approve item 16 as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item 17, David, I think this is it till you're done. Present for consideration a request for a lot line adjustment and amended plat for the Elk Run subdivision. David, please.
All right, so Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, you may remember this. We just approved this subdivision probably like a month or two ago. The owners decided that they wanted to move one of the lot lines. They wanted to adjust the lots so that they're equal area. And so in order to do that, they're required to do a lot line adjustment and submit a amended plat. So that's what you have before you. With your approval, then we'll go ahead and get it all signed and they'll file it, and that lot line will be adjusted.
Okay. Commissioners, any questions? I'd entertain a motion for 17.
I move that we approve item 17 as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item 18, present for approval, cooperative agreement for responsibilities between Wyoming Department of Family Services Child Support Program and Albany County Clerk District Court for the purpose of delineating the mutual responsibilities between the parties to receive and distribute child support payments according to federal law, rules and policies regarding Title 4D of the Social Security Act as amended, and to enter child support orders and or divorce decrees which specify payments of child and or medical support, whether the case is 4D or not 4D. Jennifer, and I see Stacy.
Stacy is here.
Okay. Okay.
I am filling in to give you the general overview, so Stacy doesn't have to talk as much. And if you have other questions that she needs to answer, she is here to answer them. This is the agreement with District Court through the State Child Support Program that we had to amend because there were changes to the tax provisions. So it's really just their program where they take child support payments and enter them into their system, and who has to pay taxes and who pays insurance and all of those things. So this is just the amended agreement for that and designates where it goes.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions?
I only have one comment, and that is that it's so interesting that this can't be brought to bear without commission approval. You know, like
It's an
a
agreement.
comment about authority,
Right.
you know what I'm saying?
It's an agreement that we enter into that really just defines what the roles of the district court clerk are as opposed to the state systems. That's really what it is.
Right, and it's interesting that we have to do that. Like, it seems like it'd just be between them, right?
Right.
I don't get
At the
it.
courthouse.
Commissioner,
Right.
entertain a motion for 18, please.
I move that we approve item 18 as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Stacy. I hope your voice gets better quickly. 19, present for approval, third amendment to the funding agreement between the Board of Commissioners of Albany County, Wyoming and Laramie Interfaith for the purpose of providing additional funds to the amount of $10,000 and to extend the term of the agreement to April 30, 2022 for the continuation of emergency rental assistance services through the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, and direct the chair to sign the agreement.
I am filling in for Tracy. She had to step out. She had an 11 o'clock appointment. So this is the third amendment for Interfaith, where we're just extending it to that April 30th date. And for this additional month, we're providing additional funds of $10,000, which we still had in our available funding for the county.
Super. Just a background with that, they originally thought the program would end at the end of March, and then they couldn't get that to happen. So I think it is ending April, the end of April is supposed to be the last I entertain a motion for 19. Then please.
I move that we approve item 19 as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you, Jennifer, for filling it. Item 20, present for approval, a letter of agreement between the Board of Commissioners of the County of Albany, Wyoming, and the Change Companies, Inc., Train the Change, and Albany County Court Supervised Treatment Program for Law Enforcement Training Services. Claire, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Commissioner. So the Trade for Change program is a great opportunity for our juvenile team members, our adult team members, our law enforcement, all of our community stakeholders. In looking through what Rebecca had talked about with the Train for Change company, there's been a lot of transitions in both programs over the last year through probation and with our counseling programs and everything else. So I think it's a really good opportunity to get everybody on the same page with things. The first part that they're going to do is an in-person classroom one-day overview of the Asam criteria, which is part of what brings someone into one of these programs. It determines the level of need they have, whether it's 1.1, 2.1, or 3.1 or higher, and there's variations in each of those. 2.1 is perfect for IGTP and for the adult drug court program, that's outpatient treatment. 3.1 is inpatient, and anything less than 2.1 would be ideal for maybe our step up or the diversion program. So educating the team members on what each of those levels means is great. In addition to that, they are using the model of stages of change, or the trans-theoretical model, which is what the IGTP team currently uses for progressing through phases 1 through 5. So teens can, or juveniles in those programs start at pre-contemplation and then end with phase 5 to graduate. So this will help to ensure everybody understands what that is and how we can move through those programs or through the program. Motivational interviewing is a great practice. I'm not really trained in it. It's something I've been wanting to be trained in. I know the gist of motivational interviewing, if you're not sure, is that essentially you let the person you're talking to do the talking. So instead of saying to them, what are things you can do to prevent a relapse? Well, what if you do this? What if you do this? What if you do this? And you throw it at them, you let them come up with those ideas themselves. So they really take the lead, and a lot of best practices having the participant or the client take the lead on this stuff. They're also going to do a community reinforcement training, which I am not familiar with. So I think it's going to be a great training for all of us to have a better understanding of how to, they say they're going to squeeze the addiction out from the inside. So I think that's a great training for all of us involved with the addiction community to have. And then the last part is medication treatment training, which is also great. Our SOR grants, I'm not sure that they require us to have MAT training, but they prefer that. It's part of what we can provide for our participants. But there's a lot of differing views on that. I know for the adult program, some people who were involved really liked that. Some people thought, oh no, this isn't good. We're just giving a different version of whatever. But it is best practice to have that. And so to be better informed on how MAT training can help our participants, both in juvenile programs, in the adult programs, with step up or step down, with diversion, all of our stakeholders, for everyone to have all of this training, I think will be really beneficial. So it's 1.5 days in person, and it'll be 2 half-day virtual trainings. I don't know if that's what you needed from me, but.
Well, thank you for the overview. I really appreciate it. Commissioners, any questions?
Yeah, Claire, are all these trainings paid through by the grant?
Yes.
In August last year, we applied for additional funding through the state grant, those surcharge funds. This was specifically listed in there, so we have funds to cover this.
And I also see that the letter of agreement has Rebecca as the director. Are we going to change that since we're just and use interim period, Claire?
Yeah, we haven't had a chance to change it with them, but I'm sure that wouldn't be a problem.
Ultimately, the agreement is between us.
But they need a point of contact.
Right. Yeah.
And Claire, who do you envision receiving this training?
I think it would be great for the IJTP team, for the adult team, but I also, in sitting in on this TJSB meeting last week, I think all of those stakeholders, it's good for everybody who's involved, especially with our juveniles. I think it's good for them all to receive that training. And I know it talks about law enforcement, and so obviously providing that for and I know it's only up to 40 people. So I think probably Bailey and I should maybe kind of talk about who is most essential for that training. But I know it's specific to one of the things that was talked about with law enforcement. So I think anybody who we can bring into the training is great. The more, the better, you know.
Yeah.
That cap is a little low. However, so many days of being away from work may be an issue for some.
Right. And so maybe we focus more like our school resource officers, you know, I don't know if sheriff office, if they're more involved with juveniles, or if the LPD is, so we could try to focus that way too.
Yeah, we will have to schedule this training before June 30th, so that is a quicker timeline. The other thought I had is prevention, COPSA, offering, you know, for people there. There's a lot of silos in this community that I'm sure everyone's aware of at this point. And being involved in so many different areas, I'm hearing a lot of different things. So I did bring that up to Claire, but we do have to have it scheduled and done before June 30th because we need to pay for it by then. So.
I just want to make sure it was full because some of that stuff is really impactful, not just drug treatment programs in everyday life, right? Motivation and everything is really helpful to people. So, yay, thank you. Any other questions?
I just liked it. Yeah. And getting everybody on the sort of the same idea, the same page when it comes to how you deal with somebody and help them move through the processes. You know, that's good standardization in that sense.
I'd entertain a motion for item 20.
I move that we approve item 20 as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Claire. I
Thank you,
appreciate it.
commissioners.
Item 21, present for approval Amendment 2 to the grant award agreement between Wyoming Office of Homeland Security and Albany County Commissioners for the purpose of extending the term of the agreement through September 30, 2023. Bailey.
Good morning, commissioners. This is just an amendment to extend this agreement a second time, just to give us another year to use those funds. We have used majority of those funds. However, one of the items in the grant does require, or doesn't require, it asks to do like a training with it. So that just gives Steph and Kate just a little more time to do that.
Commissioners, any questions? I'd entertain a motion for 21 then.
I think that we provided 21 as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed? Motion carries. Bailey, you're back with us again. Present for approval agreement between the Board of Commissioners of the County of Albany, Wyoming, Greater Wyoming Big Brothers Big Sisters for additional juvenile prevention and diversion services in the amount of $16,334 to provide prevention services to youth prior to involvement in adult and juvenile court under the Wyoming Department of Family Services Community Juvenile Services Board Grant from March 1st, 2022 through June 30, 2022. Bailey.
This agreement is just our diversion agreement with Big Brothers Big Sisters that we usually continue year after year when we have our CJSB funding. Like I brought forward to you, I believe it was the last meeting. CJSB funding is back at the state level. They are doing that immediate funding right now that's through June 30th. So that's what this agreement's for. We were going to be getting 12,000, but there were a few counties that decided they weren't going to use those funds at this time. So we're actually getting the 16,334. But that's it.
Any questions, commissioners? Entertain a motion for 22, please.
I move that we approve item 22 as presented.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item 23, set a meeting to consider approval of the Rural Energy Pilot Program Grant Letter of Intent submission. Bailey, please.
We just need to set a special meeting, because of course my deadlines don't line up with your guys' meetings. And this is 2 weeks worth of time that our grant writer has to work on this. And this was brought to us a little later, so she's crunching it in real quick. But the due date is the 19th, and you guys have a night meeting the 19th. So I would like to request a special meeting either Monday the 18th or Friday the 15th.
Commissioners? I'm sure you've seen it, but I saw the draft last night. It's fantastic, the work that's been done. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you to Karen and Rachel at the university.
They
This
spent
is-
4 hours on it on Friday afternoon, and they got a good chunk of it done. So I just need to go in and work on some of that budget, and I think,
Nice.
yeah, we're in the right direction.
Yeah, it's 19 pages of a letter of intent, but in that is a bad thing, it's a good thing, because it was short term. It had to be rural, and it had a 19-page letter of intent, so you had to get your ducks in a row and get moving quickly. So there's up to $2 million for this grant available. And we're hoping to have it for planning with the city and the county so that we could do energy retrofits, we could do renewable energy programs. So we'd have the human resources to be able to move on programs quickly. And also use those people to be helpful in infrastructure funding that's coming so that our county can get the lion's share of it. So the 15th or the 18th, would either one of those work for you guys?
What's her deadline? What are our choices?
The 19th is the deadline, so I'd like to.
So you would need to push it out as far as you can, so you have as much time as you can. What if there's something that comes out of the work session that, I mean, you know, how final of a product do you expect to have? Or do you want to have when we have the work session? Because if we're right up against the deadline, then that might not be good. You wind up, if there was something that you were gonna go back and change, you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
no, I agree with you. However, you guys have never had me go back before, so I'm
No, it's
thinking
true.
on that.
It's true.
But it does need Commissioner Gosar's signature on that, so it does need to be pretty final by the time it comes to you guys, because it does require a signature.
How about the 15th, and
Yeah.
then maybe we could get Christina's stuff done. Can you have your stuff ready to go by the 15th, Christina?
Mhm.
Okay, can we do the 15th? What part of the 15th works the best for you guys? Morning, yeah?
Okay, for board.
Morning.
Okay, and what time in the morning? 9?
Yep.
9?
Sure.
Okay. Does that work for your schedule, Bailey?
Yeah, absolutely.
Christina? Okay, 9 AM on the 15th, and then we'll handle that when we get to 26-22 for Christina.
Thank you.
You bet, thank you. Thank you for your work on that. All right.
So we would cover both subjects.
Both subjects kill two
Because
birds
the
with the same
rural
stick.
electric, you know, pilot program, the energy pilot program is not going to be a very long discussion. I would,
No, I don't think so either. Unless- Item 24, request funding in the amount of $1,200 from 1% sales tax for the annual memberships to ICLEI. So this is the request that I have made with regard to the Hound School and doing our missions inventory. So those students are now working with our program heads and directors to calculate amount of fuel, amount of electricity usage, gas usage. They'll produce a report, and then we can operate on that report to reduce our usage in all our buildings, or our fuel, or if there's a better way of doing it. It's $1,200 to have access to that calculator through an organization called ICLEI. Just a side note, there is grants available also through ICLEI that are being pursued at this point to So this is an opportunity for a lot of different things at the county and the city in cooperation.
Pete, is that a acronym for something quickly?
Yeah, and I wish I could remember it. International.
I went on the website and what they state their organization name is doesn't match.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
So
I
maybe
was gonna
it's,
say, when I just Googled.
maybe it's in a
Italy,
different
Yeah.
language or something like that.
Yeah.
It's French. Acronyms came from French.
So the students already have access to this calculator, and either we pay it, which I think we should, or the House School will pay it, so that they continue to have access to this calculator.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion for 24 then.
I move that we approve the funding in the amount of $1,200 for the 1% sales tax for the annual membership due to Equity.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you. 25, make appointments to the Albany County Historic Preservation Board. Commissioners, I'd entertain a motion. 2 openings, and we had 2 applicants today.
I move that we appoint Karen Bard to the Albany County Historic Preservation Board and also Casey Prevedel to the Albany County Historic Preservation Board.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item 26, make appointment to the Albany County Predator Management Control District. I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we appoint Lindsay Wheat to the Albany County Predator Management Control District.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item 26A, set a work session for the budget we get for April 15th at 9 a.m. Is that going to work?
Yes, that'll be just fine.
Okay.
So do we, when we set a special meeting, because, work session doesn't have any action, but the special meeting, because we would be voting on the rural energy pilot program. So to me, this is a special meeting followed by a work session.
Yeah.
Do we have to set a special meeting by motion? Or do we just, does the chair just set it? I know we don't have to by work session. Just something that I can't remember after all these years.
Sounds as if you've done it both ways. How would we like to do it?
I don't think it's necessary.
That was of the work session following our special meeting on the 15th. Okay.
So that's 15th at 9 o'clock.
Yep.
Correct.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And so then item 27, approved vouchers for March 2022. Any motion for that?
I move that we approve the vouchers for March 2022.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item 27A, executive session pursuant to state statute 16-4-405 I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we exit regular session and enter into executive session pursuant to Wyoming statute 16-4-405A3.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all those opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Leaving regular session, entering executive session at 11:28. Sure. Yeah, if you need to go use the bathroom, yeah. Quick question, why the executive session is on?
Something came up actually yesterday afternoon.
Getting executive sessions in.
Tim.
Nobody wants to have an executive session. I don't even know what it's about until they tell you.
Been there, done that.
How are you?
Hey, Tim, how are you?
Good, how are you guys doing?
Good, thanks.
Enjoying the frigid
April. North wind blowing this morning. Wow, man, went to work this morning. It's blowing me.
Well, seriously, like I was driving in on East Grand
Those makers are incredibly fast and quite honestly. The reason we conduct some services to the clinic. Right? Because they're so small. The hallway is not very far. Voice travels.
Oh, and I'm sure that, you know, those walls were packed full of insulation. You know,
Becky could hear us in her office, which is right through here.
Yeah.
And she was like, do you know I can hear you? And I was like, you're an attorney, you're subject to confidentiality. She goes, I know, that's why I'm not concerned, but just so you know.
All right. I guess I'd entertain a motion to leave executive session, return to executive session.
I move that we leave executive session and return to regular session.
Do we need the statute 64-405 at all?
No.
Second.
Did that.
Okay. It's moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Leaving executive session, returning to regular session at 11:58. Actions for the executive sessions, there are no actions before the commission. And so seeing no more business before the Board of County Commission on April 5th of 2022, I adjourn the meeting. Have a great afternoon. Thanks for tuning in with us, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.